So you're looking to buy an iPad, but there are a lot of great choices out there, and in order to choose, you want to know more than just the specs. You need to know which one would work best for what you plan on doing with it so you can get the best value. And you're going to see that price doesn't always equal value. There are 5 current iPad models, and I've got them all right here. I've used every single one of them since they were released. So let me help you choose, and thank you to Best Buy for sponsoring this video. The first thing I want you to think about is the size, because if you buy an iPad that's the wrong size, you're just not going to use it. If it's too big, you're not going to want to bring it with you because it's just too much of a hassle. And if it's too small, it may not provide enough of an advantage over your phone to make it worth carrying with you. Now, I look at the entire lineup in 3 groups. So there's the iPad mini, which is clearly the smallest. Then there's the iPad 9, Air 4, and the 11-inch iPad Pro, which have different size screens, but they have essentially the same footprint as far as portability. Then there's a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, which is significantly bigger. When we look at the actual displays, there are some really important differences in size, resolution, refresh rate, and even in the type of displays. So let me break it down for you. Very quickly, in terms of display size, the iPad mini is 8.3 inches, the iPad 9 is almost 2 inches bigger at 10.2 inches, the iPad Air 4 is 10.9 inches, then the smaller iPad Pro is 11 inches, and the larger one is 12.9 inches. But we have several different types of displays as well. So first, the iPad 9 is the only non-laminated display which has an air gap. And the other 4 have a fully laminated display, meaning that the display, the touch layer, and the cover glass are fused into a single display assembly. For most things like watching video, playing games, or using different apps, there isn't really a meaningful difference between the two. But when it comes to using the Apple Pencil, on the iPad 9, you may be able to see a small separation between the tip of the pencil and the content that's being created because of the air gap. On the other 4, the image looks like it's painted right on top of the glass, and the tip of the pencil will look like it's touching it. If you're taking notes or doing some light drawing, this doesn't really matter, but if you're a serious artist, you're going to want a fully laminated display. The one advantage of a non-laminated display is that it's less expensive to replace because most of the time you're only scratching or cracking the cover glass, and the display itself is unharmed. On a fully laminated display, the entire display assembly has to be replaced regardless because it's all one piece. Now, another important difference is the refresh rate. So the Mini, the iPad 9, and the Air 4 have a 60 Hz refresh rate, while the 2 iPad Pro models have ProMotion, which is Apple's adaptive refresh rate. That means that they're able to drop all the way down to 24 Hz when you don't need that fast refresh rate, and by so doing, conserve battery life. Then if you're scrolling or switching between apps or gaming or watching content, then they can bump up the refresh rate all the way to 120 Hz, which provides a much more fluid and responsive user experience. Finally, the iPad 9 has a Retina display, the Mini, Air 4, and the 11-inch iPad Pro have a liquid Retina display, and only the 12.9-inch iPad Pro has a liquid Retina XDR display, which is powered by mini LEDs. It also has the highest resolution and the highest maximum brightness, so if you're looking for the best display on an iPad, that's the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And if you're looking to buy a tablet or anything else on Black Friday, you should check out the sponsor of this video, Best Buy, who's doing something really cool. They have guaranteed Black Friday prices on a ton of deals, which is awesome because you don't have to manage the stress of shopping on Black Friday. Basically, if you're a Best Buy Total Tech or a My Best Buy member, you can buy anything from the included Black Friday deals categories, and if the price goes down on or before November 26th of 2021, Best Buy will refund you the difference. They have a great selection of tablets, laptops, camera gear, which you know I'm gonna love, and I was also surprised at how many different categories were included. I figured it would be only small consumer electronics, but I was checking out some electric bikes. I've also been interested in the Hydra, which is like the super cool looking rowing machine with an integrated display. Next, I headed over to the TV section, and it's incredible how affordable some of these TVs are. A few of them were absolutely giant. I mean, 85 inches, that's huge. So if you're looking to buy some new gear, but you don't want to risk the price dropping for Black Friday, check out the link in the description for guaranteed Black Friday prices on a ton of great deals at Best Buy. Back to the iPads, when it comes to biometric authentication, we have a few different options. The iPad 9 still has a home button with the older style Touch ID. The iPad Air 4 and the iPad Mini 6 have the newer Touch ID that's incorporated right into the power button, and the 11 and the 12.9-inch models of the iPad Pro have Face ID. All 5 of them work great, they're fast and they're accurate, So the main choice here has to be between Face and Touch ID. And that's going to come down to how and where you use your iPad. When we look at the overall design, the iPad 9 is the only one to still have this older style with the larger bezels on the top and the bottom. The other 4 iPads look very similar with squared off edges, rounded corners, and smaller bezels all the way around. Personally, I prefer this newer design because it means that we're getting a larger display with the same size footprint, and there are also some important implications when it comes to accessories, but first let's talk about these ports. Again, the iPad 9 stands alone as the only iPad to still use a Lightning port for charging and for accessories. This is convenient if you have an iPhone, but all around it's a less powerful port and it's more limited in terms of the accessories that it can power, and in particular, external SSDs. The iPad Mini 6 and the iPad Air 4 have a USB-C port with a maximum transfer speed of 5 gigabits per second. Then the 2 models of the iPad Pro have a Thunderbolt port with a maximum transfer speed of 40 gigabits per second. Now this really only matters to you if you plan on transferring a lot of data back and forth. Otherwise, you're not really taking advantage of this higher capacity. And quick note, if you're looking to edit videos off of an external SSD when using LumaFusion, then every iPad other than the iPad 9 will allow you to edit right off of that drive without having to copy those files onto your internal storage. Now let's talk about accessories, starting with the Apple Pencil. The iPad 9 still uses the first generation Apple Pencil, which pairs and charges using the Lightning port. The other 4 iPads use the second generation Apple Pencil, which is paired, charged, and stored on the side of the iPads. Both pencils work great, but personally I prefer the shape, feel, functionality, and added convenience of the second generation pencil. Another popular accessory is the Magic Keyboard, which is compatible with the iPad Air 4, the 11, and the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. There are some other great keyboard cases for almost every iPad. The only real exception that doesn't have a great keyboard is the iPad Mini 6 because of how small it is. Now I want to talk about the camera and the speakers, and let's start with the speakers because it's pretty straightforward. So the iPad 9 only has speakers at the bottom, and they sound good, but if you're gaming or you're watching content in landscape mode, then the sound is only coming out to one side. The iPad Mini 6 and the iPad Air 4 have speakers on both sides, so when you're using them in landscape mode, you're getting stereo sound. Now, both the 11 and the 12.9-inch models of the iPad Pro come with 4 speakers, which are individually controlled, and they adjust to the orientation that you're holding the device. As far as audio quality, I placed them in this order from last to first. The iPad 9, the iPad Mini 6, the iPad Air 4, the 11-inch iPad Pro, and then the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. And with every single step, there is a noticeable improvement in how full and rich the audio is. Looking at the front-facing camera, every model other than the iPad Air 4 has a 12-megapixel ultra-wide camera with center stage. And this allows the iPads to detect and track a subject as it moves through the frame. Then it can crop the image to always keep the subject properly framed. The iPad Air 4 has an older 7-megapixel camera. For rear-facing cameras, the iPad 9 has an 8-megapixel 1080p camera. The iPad Mini 6 and the iPad Air 4 have a wide 12-megapixel camera, and then the 11 and the 12.9-inch models of the iPad Pro have a wide 12-megapixel camera and an ultra-wide 10-megapixel camera. So if you want the best camera system on an iPad, that would be the iPad Pro, followed by the iPad Mini 6, and then you have to choose between the iPad Air 4 and the iPad 9. And you'll be able to do that based on whether you prioritize the front or the rear-facing camera. So personally, I care more about the front-facing camera because I almost never use the rear-facing cameras on my tablets, so I would go with the iPad 9. The iPad Pro models also have a LiDAR scanner, so if you do a lot of augmented reality or you have some other needs for it for your specific use case, I would recommend one of those. Now, looking at processing power, there's some pretty major differences. So in order of performance, the iPad 9 comes with the A13 chip, the iPad Air 4 has the A14, the Mini 6 has the A15, then the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch iPad Pro are the most powerful with the M1 chip. For the vast majority of users, this difference in power isn't likely to translate into a noticeably different user experience. And those who need more power are very likely to already know that up front. But if you have any questions, I do my best to read all my comments, so go ahead and ask. When we look at RAM, the iPad 9 comes with 3 gigabytes, the Mini 6 and the Air 4 come with 4 gigabytes, and both models of the iPad Pro come with either 8 or 16 gigabytes, depending on how much internal storage you get. There are advantages for having more RAM, like more layers in Procreate or a better gaming experience with very demanding games. So again, if you have any questions, just ask. And moving on to battery life, in my experience, the iPad mini 6 ranks last, then the iPad 9, the iPad Air 4, the 11-inch iPad Pro, and a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. All of them have the same rating from Apple, but this is what my actual user experience has shown. Now let's take a look at the storage options, and there are really only two categories. So the iPad 9, the Air 4, and the Mini 6 are offered in 64 gigabytes or 256 gigabytes. If you're a casual user and you're just browsing the web, streaming content, and playing a few games, 64 gigabytes will work. But if you want a lot of really big games, or maybe you're shooting video or editing photos, then go ahead and go with 256. The iPad Pro starts with 128 gigs and goes all the way up to 2 terabytes, which is a ton. There are a lot of different prices, so what I'll do is just give you the starting prices for each one. The 64 gigabyte version of the iPad 9 sells for $329, the Mini 6 is $499, the iPad Air 4 is $599, and then for the 128 gig iPad Pro, the 11-inch is $799, and the 12.9-inch is $1099. So it's the biggest, it has the best display, the best camera system, best audio, and the most powerful port, but it's also the most expensive. Now that you watched this iPad comparison, you should check out this video right here. Click on my face to subscribe. You know what I always say, buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.